Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia. It's another episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, explorer of the universe, musician, and award-winning Northern Virginia author, our guest brings you action, adventure, fantasy, and horrors in the forms of Tenebris, the Unholy Darkness, and Ravings of an Unsettled Mind. And just like us, he's a seeker of truths. We'll be covering all this plus more. Please welcome to Let's Find Out a good friend of the show, author J.A. Barrios. J.A., my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out. I'm so happy to have you on.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me, and really great intro there. So,
thank you
I can
for
feel
that.
it.
And we met not long ago, and the last few guests actually back in December, Sterling Yow's Christmas with Krampus, and we struck a conversation about the things that you do. You're a man that wears many hats, and then we picked up a good day to have you on the show, and bam, here we are, my friend. So let's talk about a few things here, because we talked about earlier in the pre-interview Ravings of an Unsettled Mind and also Tenebris, the Unholy Darkness. I don't know where to begin because I love the concept of both. So let's start with Ravings of an Unsettled Mind. The description is pretty intense on that one. You pulled a lot of ideas from a lot of experiences you've had, your life's demons, into this collection of short stories. What's going on during that time while you were writing that book?
Many of the stories I've been working on just over the last several years, at least the last 10 years now, I guess, or going on 10. Every year for Halloween for a few years, well, for October, I should say, each week I'd write like a new short story leading up to Halloween. And it wasn't until just about a year or two ago where I decided I should, pick some of those stories, compile them together, and, put them out as, a collection. And when I started working on that, so I guess I've like suffered through grief for quite some time, or I guess about 10 years. 10 years ago this August, my one of my best friends had taken his own life, which kind of like sent me down a really dark path, and lost a lot of good, soldiers along the way since then too. And I think, one of my good friends had just, recently passed within this last year as I was putting together Ravings. At the time, I had a different name, or this Untitled. And that's right when I decided to, instead of just doing a general book of horror, I decided to put my more personal stories in there and write some brand new ones that were, more on the themes of grief and depression, because these are things that, not just I fight alone, all of us deal with our own struggles. And it's always nice to kind of feel that kinship wherever you can get it, even if it is through something like horror.
Now, with compiling all the short stories together, and I understand the reason why you did it, but how does it differ from when you write a book, a complete story, to just breaking it up into different sets of stories?
Oh yeah. Because I guess prior to that, I did Tenebris, my first debut novel, which I spent about 14 years working on. So kind of night and day with this is, I think Stephen King, or it's either Stephen King or Joe Hill, one of the Kings, mentioned something about a good short story should only take like a day to write or something. And it was just like literally night and day, where I just, all right, I have several hours dedicated to do whatever I want. I'm going to sit down and start writing a story with this idea that I have. And then 4 hours later, oh, I've written an entire story. And just something so satisfying of just, completely crunching down that time. It was definitely very challenging to not go too long with some stories, because I had already like trained myself to write a more of an epic style novel. And it was just kind of like, all right, let me write a certain amount. Let me make sure that I'm not leading on to make this into its own book, and so on and so forth. Which, that being said, one of the stories in Ravings, I believe the title we went with was "To Become a Hero." No, "The Making of a Hero." That is an excerpt of a future novel I have. So that one is a little longer in the book, but I basically took like the one horror aspect of a sci-fi novel and placed it in there.
Interesting, because you said earlier, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead.
Oh, that's all right.
And then we'll circle back definitely for Ravings. 14 years to write Tenebris.
Yeah.
Now, I know that writing a book is a hell of a thing. It takes a lot of time. But in that 14 years, so why did it take so long? And I don't mean no disrespect in the question, but I guess was it the fact that, were you doing the research for this book, or is it something that started off as a younger person with the idea and eventually flowered into something more?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Definitely, the original concepts of the story go as far back as my memory can go. So I have memories of being in like kindergarten and drawing these like human-like, snake beings. That there was 4 of them. They all had like cobra hoods. They called them the Cobra Clan. And I somehow convinced 3 friends of mine, like at school in kindergarten, to play this game called Cobra Clan, or Cobras. So like during recess, we would like basically summon the devil, who would tell us that there's these evil demons on Earth that we have to go and kill. And that's kind of how that originally started. And over the years of my life, just thinking of that concept, developing it into a fun story for me to think about as I go to sleep. I was always a huge fan of like the Conan movies and the comics, so I kind of like having that aesthetic, of like a story. And it's about the time when I was in middle school where I decided I wanted to try to write a book. Had 2 other book ideas that I started dabbling with, but then got distracted. Young teen, and I think I was in 10th grade in high school when I started working on the original version of Tenebris, which was called The Unholy Wars then. And it was absolutely terrible. I wrote like the entire epic within like 20 pages, and just kind of slept on that for a little bit, kind of shelving the idea of being an author, because I don't know, at the time I thought it's as like impossible as becoming like a big movie star or something. And I know my dad was, I feel like, not very encouraging of the arts, even though he was a pretty encouraging person. But just culturally or whatever, you got to do like hardworking job, something that like has something more quick and force to show with. But I don't know, I was in my senior year of high school when I was doing an internship with Arlington Educational Television. And when I was talking with my like supervisor, I guess, of how I was thinking of going in a different direction, he kind of like dug into me and rekindled my love for writing. And that's when I went back to The Unholy Wars, which has become The Unholy Darkness, I guess, now. And just kind of off and on for many years, just different distractions. I fell in love, moved to a new city, dropped everything, went to Pittsburgh. Didn't like work on my book for some time then, and that relationship fell through. But I still lived in Pittsburgh on my own, so I picked up a second job, worked for like 2 years, 2 full-time jobs, never had any time for writing. And so it wasn't until I had like a good amount of the story written, but then when my friend Luke Ellison passed away in August of 2014, that was kind of like the, hey, we're not immortal. We have a time limit. You got stuff that you need to finish working on. So I quit that second job and went back to working on Tenebris, as well as 6 other book ideas.
Wow, and something that you said earlier, I love the whole thing about Conan because I'm a big fan of Conan.
Oh yeah,
The image it brought to mind because the 2 serpents facing each other because he was looking for those who were responsible for killing his village and his mother, beheading him when he was a kid.
And followers the set.
Yes, and then they climb the tower, him and his two cohorts, right? And they go down trying to steal, I guess that ruby or that diamond, right?
Yeah.
And then that giant serpent pops up, and the minute you're talking about this, like, and I have the DVD here somewhere, but great movie choice. 2 thumbs up from me. And with the concept of the book, follows the first dwellers of Earth. There's serpentinoids, right?
Serpenoids.
Serpenoids. Yes. I was thinking Serpentor from G.I. Joe. I don't know if you go.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
G.I. Joe also is I actually think G.I. Joe is the originator of how I came up with the idea of serpenoids. It's somewhere between that or this terrible B movie called I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's just multiple S's. But in that movie, there's like a guy who turns into a cobra specifically. And then in the G.I. Joe, the movie, Cobra Commander is like exposed to these spores that make him mutate into a cobra. And there's a point in the movie where he's half man, half snake. And that was just kind of like, wow, that looks really cool. And then just kind of starting like doodling that and creating that as my own characters. Just like a, snake cobra man.
Yeah, and he didn't have very good fate in that movie, Cobra Commander, because he eventually became a full serpent after.
Oh yeah.
So question with the serpents thing. Once you started doing some research into this, did you start looking into the theory of the reptilians and the reptoids being probably the first inhabitants of Earth before humans came around? Was that anything of an influence what you were doing?
Oh no, not at all. I think like one of the first times I was pitching this idea to someone, and just mentioning like the first beings of Earth, these reptilian like humanoids, or these serpenoids, and then they put in the term like the reptilians, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess that is a thing, and I was just like unintentionally made that connection there. I don't know, it's just kind of more like trying to tie it to like biblical themes. Because there's like the snake in the garden, and I don't know. I still haven't like did my own like kind of fan lore of making that connection there, but just there's a certain theme that's going on with Tenebris, especially is kind of just like a lost book of the Bible type thing. They never really talk about the world of hell much in the good book, and I always felt like this could be like what was going to be one of the titles is the story of darkness. So it's just like how that all began, and we start off with Earth in a primordial stage where the sun has yet to be created. Earth is just this like hot magma filled world that's desolate with all these earthquakes and mountains, and I just remember like thinking of the idea of Earth in that time period and how much it resembles what we considered to look like hell, and so that's kind of how those parallels started building up to each other.
No, great concept. And what are some of the standout characters in this book?
What are some of the outstanding characters? So the main deity that the serpenoids worship, his name is Thandrua, and the serpenoids, they first come to existence on Earth, and they live for a small period of time, and then they start to die off of dehydration. The creator, so to speak, had created this environment with these beings to flourish, but didn't realize that living beings needed something very essential like water, and so sends rains down to Earth. And while this is happening, also realizes that these beings are kind of like on their own. They need a leader to guide them, and kind of like creates this combination of discarded bodies from other projects or whatever, and sends that down with the rain, and that comes up. It shows as Lord Thandrua, which resembles the very like iconic, like reddish horned devil type creature. And from that point on, the Serpenoids worship that being as like their life giver. I have Thandrua in this story as kind of a dual side of the concept of Satan or the devil. I remember being a child when I was raised Catholic, and I remember learning through these stories. Something that I always thought was interesting was Lucifer was referred to as like the most beautiful being of existence.
Right.
However, the devil was always like depicted as this like horned monstrous beast, and yet they're like supposed to be the same entity. But my idea was, how about they were two separate beings, and maybe these two were both rulers of this domain at different times. But over the years, the stories kind of get muddled, and so now several thousand, or millions of years later, we have blurred the two entities to be one and the same.
Perfectly thought opinion, because I have a sort of a similar way of looking at it. I think, in a way, just me, I think they're the same person. Mm-hmm. I just think that over the years, they want to vilify him and make him look as awful and grotesque as possible, to say this is evil. But no, you could be right. It could have been two completely different individuals, because they had kind of two different characteristics in a way. So with Tenebris, how's it been doing?
Oh yeah, it's been doing really well. Won its first award in November at the Bookfest Awards for Best Fantasy Epic, and definitely can't tell you how extremely proud I am to win an award in my first year out there doing my author thing. It's definitely very gratifying. Excited to try to put it in through some more contests and see what other kind of ribbons I can attach to that. And I definitely think this story of Tenebris can be like the next Lord of the Rings, the next big fantasy story in fantasy fandom, and getting at least some gratification that it can at least be award winning is like the steps there.
And from the way that it's explained, I think it would become a pretty badass graphic novel.
Oh yes, that's also in the future horizon too. I've been working on a script concept for the graphic novel version. I know my partner's been brushing up on their art to try to do that, but I'm also very considering trying to see if I can maybe pitch that out to a comic house, maybe like Oni Press Comics or Dark Horse Comics. That'll just be really cool. It's definitely a very visual story with beings like the Serpenoids, or Sectorus. That's a serpent-like humanoid with big cobra hood. Which as far as notable characters go, Sectorus kind of is the main focus of the story, the main lead, quote unquote, hero. That's major theme of the story is there are no good or bad guys. Everyone is doing what they think is right, which isn't necessarily the best thing for everyone else, but definitely have a really big character arc for Sectorus and him becoming the quintessential fantasy hero.
And speaking of the art and your visions of what they look like, before the show, you showed me something. I know the listeners of Let's Find Out can't see it, but you had a statue or a mold made out of one of them, right?
Oh yes, yeah. I had a figure made of Sectorus, who I was just talking about. It's handmade by Sculpty, by a buddy of mine. And I met him at one of my past events, Ed. We were at Maryland Pop and Horror Con, or no, Maryland Pop and Horror Con in August, which was an interesting event. My first horror event, but definitely my favorite part was my neighbors. And this guy had a really cool setup. He also had a Conan figure. He had a Conan and a Red Sonja, and that's especially what caught my eye. And I know, like, for some time I've been wanting to like outsource somewhere and try to see if we can get like a figure done of these characters. And as soon as I saw that that Conan, I knew right away I need to get Ed to work on this. And it's like, better than what I thought it was going to come out to be. I really love it.
Man, you mentioned Red Sonja. You're hitting all the right notes tonight, man.
Also, yeah. I love my barbarians. I love my comics. Can't go wrong there.
No, not at all. And as I promised earlier, we're going to get into something a little bit later, but going back to Ravens of an Unsettled Mind, and where I would assume it'd be kind of a difficult way of writing things, but after you wrote the short stories and you got them out of your system, did you feel some sort of relief or comfort after writing them?
Oh, yeah. Ravens was an extremely cathartic thing to write. Because I already had decided to go with this more heavier tone with it, something more real. I think it's because there was a podcast I spoke on with earlier last year. It's called Urban Guru Podcast, and I think that was like the second time I spoke kind of publicly about myself, and I realized like both times I just focused on like how I came up with the story of Tenebris and just what I was like getting into, but I didn't really feel like I was completely open to who I am, what I struggle with. And, the people that know me near and dear know I carry some real heavy grief. And that's like, what? I want to like be myself, this is what's real. And I know you can, connect with a lot of people that way. And so I started putting together Ravens, and I think it was like in June, a really good friend of mine, Gio Bardos, had passed away after several years of with an addiction problem. And that definitely really hit home and made it kind of challenging to like edit over and read over some of these stories, especially like one of the stories, Inheritance, is the themes in that is addiction, dealing with addiction. And the last story at the end is my personal favorite, The Final Sunrise, which is taking the perspective of a vampire as he walks on his favorite hike, going to the top of Old Rag Mountain in Shenandoah Valley to wait for the sunrise, as he thinks about his overlong immortal life and all the connections that he lost along the way. And it just felt so I don't know, I just connected it with like so much more than I thought I would. Definitely had some real deep feelings after every reading, and once it was done and packed up, just I don't know, I felt kind of relieved, felt both like a weight off my shoulders, but then also like still heavy in this like mindset. But the more people I connect with, the more I see other readers like love these stories, the more gratifying that is. And I know I went the right way with it, and it's good to be seen.
I mean, and it's great that you wrote it. And now with these 2 books under your belt, living everyday life, working, responsibilities, you've also managed to fit an awful lot of these author meet and greets and conventions as well. One in particular that comes up is you're going to be on September 20th and 29th. I believe it's in Maryland, Fright Reads Books Festival.
Yeah, Fright Reads Book Fest. That's in Columbia, Maryland. Actually, I believe it's the Meriwether Lake House. It's definitely one of the events I'm looking forward to the most. Did my first year last year, and it was a blast. I loved it. It was definitely one of the most fun events I did. Got to like hang out with Brian O'Halloran, Dante, from Clerks, special effects team behind like Ghostbusters. It was super cool. And Harry Carpenter, the organizer, is a really great guy. He's also an author himself, so he does a lot of great horror stories. But yeah, Fright Reads is something definitely looking forward to. I know right before then well, I guess, yeah, as of now in June, I have like a light schedule coming up. I'm still about to fill it up. The two events that I'm looking forward to the most is Fright Reads, and then in June is Living Dead Con, which is going to be in the Monroeville Mall in Pennsylvania. And it's kind of, yeah, a horror convention. Usually it has like Dawn of the Dead themes. That's where the original film was shot. And I've been wanting to go to this for a long time. And I lived in Pittsburgh for about 5 years. Some of the stories that are in Ravings were written in there, and a couple of them kind of actually take place in Pittsburgh. The story, was it Night Shift, was definitely just like an actual real life interaction I had with a questionable looking person in there. Might actually fall under your supernatural section of or the paranormal section of your audience, because this guy had the face of, if you've ever seen Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon, where
Yes.
he's like invisible, and there's like he wears this like latex mask that like helps people see him or whatever, and just looks so unnaturally fake that I remember getting off work. This is when I was doing the two jobs. I worked at Starbucks in the morning, was working at a burger whiskey bar at night, and on my way to my car, like 2 a.m, I run into this guy that's head to toe in black, shades on, a cap, and his hood up, which was already kind of weird. And I just like almost walked into him. I looked up to apologize, and I saw his face, and it made me think of Hollow Man. And my first instinct was, I just got to get to my car right now. It was pretty creepy. And I've actually taken that concept, other than writing a direct story based on that in Ravings, I've kind of taken the concept of that character for some other future use too.
I mean, there's so much more you could do with that. Absolutely. That story has legs, man.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I'm excited to do Living Dead Con because Monroeville's like up the street from Pittsburgh. So I finally get to, bring my art to my second home, basically.
Also, let's not talk about you and I are going to be seeing each other in April.
Oh, yes.
April 20th.
Yeah, good day for Halloween in April is the event. So that's in Berryville, Virginia, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be good. That'll be the next snarly event, and with how great the last one was, I'm really looking forward to this one. The month right afterwards, in May, there's a similar event called Halfway to Halloween, so I get to celebrate Halloween 2 months in a row in the spring. That's at Marley Station Mall in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And also in May, I'll be doing a book signing with the Barnes & Noble in Columbia, Maryland, May 18th. And I just locked that one down today, actually. So it's pretty nice. Got to speak with a couple other bookstores. So I have some other things like tentatively in the works, but there's at least one before I walked away. They just like pulled up the schedule, like what day you want to do, and it said anytime in May works. So
awesome. It's good to get out there, not only network, which is what we do, and meet other great authors or podcasters out there, but there's something about meeting the people that either listen to your show or read your books and just have a conversation about it. You can't put a price on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was at AwesomeCon last year in DC, where I think the second day, there's someone I just ran into, and it happened to be someone that I sold Tenebris to earlier, or I guess the day before, and she was telling me how she just started reading it the night before, and like saying all these great things about it. It was kind of really nice to like bump into a stranger that's like, oh yeah, I started reading your book, and I love it so much. It's cool, especially something I worked on for so long. It's all I want is for people to read it.
No, and that definitely they should. And we talked about this earlier. Not only are you an explorer, not only are you an author, you're also a musician.
Oh, yes.
And it's one of those things that, well, let's bring it up. Cigar etiquette.
Yeah, cigar etiquette. I am the lead singer and bassist of a 2-person duo. My bandmate, Howard, plays guitar. These days, usually more on the electric guitar. We started out as like an acoustic duo, and we've just kind of expanded more and more over time. We been playing together for years. was early in high school where we got together with a couple other friends and like, oh, let's form a grunge band, and then just like, all we need is a drummer, and then never found a drummer. So then scrapped that idea. A couple years went by, and then like I got really into like the psychedelic era, and it's like, hey, I want to do psychedelic music. I love Pink Floyd, I love The Doors. There's only so much of that music. Let's make more of it. And then same kind of thing. We got some people together. Still couldn't find a drummer, so I was like, you know what? We're gonna be like experimental with this. No drummers. We're just gonna do this without that. And we did one song together, and that was about it. And then after that, Howard and I were just kind of like, do you want to just do music together? It's so hard to organize other people. And so yeah, we've been playing ever since like 2010 or whatever. Just had like 4 or so songs. Moved away to Pittsburgh for a while. That definitely put a pin in the project. But ever since I came back in 2017, we've been slowly building more up on that. And once the pandemic hit in 2020, it's kind of a blessing. I was working with Starbucks, and my store shut down for about 2 months. And then my bandmate, he was like laid off from his job. And so all this extra time I was working on a different story project, and just about every other day I would go over to Howard's place, we jam out, and we ended up making like 12 brand new songs within just like a matter of weeks. We recorded a house show that we did in that time too, and that's on YouTube. So it should be able to be found like under Cigar Etiquette. I believe the name of that specific video is 10 Years of Seasons.
And now for the listeners, so let's find out, our friends out there. Again, we talked about it earlier. Can we play one of your songs on this episode?
Oh yeah, no, you definitely will be able to. Yeah, you just like cue that up there at the end.
Oh, we're gonna cue it up here after we're done. But also for the listeners of the show, our good friends that want to know more about what it is that you're doing and all the conventions you'll be doing, the meet and greets, where can they find out more about what it is that you do?
Let's see. So yeah, I'm all over social media. I use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I kind of have a blue sky, I guess. But I'm mostly like focus all of my activity on Instagram and Facebook, which you can find me under barrios.books. And my name is J.A. Barrios. We have barrios.books for both Instagram and Facebook, and then at Barrios Books for Twitter.
Excellent. My friend, this has been a pleasure having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you once again on April 20th for Halloween in April, and we'll catch up on that time, and hopefully when you bring out the next book, or if you have one of your shows, let me know, man. I'll be there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's this has been great. Really good convo. Definitely looking forward to April. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely, my friend. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Please check us out on all our social media, YouTube, and we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. So hey now, Let's Find Out is now on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Catch the show on Saturdays at 2 a.m. For more information, please visit kgradb.com. That's kgradb.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends. Based on the prologue of Tenebris, the Unholy Darkness, when a leader is sent from the cosmos to guide the serpenoids on Earth, in a dark world receiving its first downpour, an egg-like comet crashes from the sky as Lord Thandura hatches from it. This is Thandura's Descent by Cigar Etiquette.
Dying, Sugarlina, you knew nothing but our pain. Then from the clouds came the rain. We embraced it and lived again. the sky fell an egg. We surrounded and we prayed. As two horns emerged, showing his ring. He set forth, we were in awe, and we bowed down to the floor. The life giver, he must be, and he will set us free. Stood above us, the threads gave us a purpose, and he named my kin.
Copyright co-host Diego. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.
Moonlight Monster Media presents the Steeds Ridge DVDs, Steeds Ridge posters, stickers, Moonlight Monster Media mugs, and Moonlight Monster Media t-shirts.